From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
And Corey Clark.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'ma buy cars, I'ma get clothes, I'ma rock jewels all along.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. We have made it. It is game week. So, point blank period, is this team good enough to make it to the playoff? I believe, someone from ESPN believes, will Corey Clark believe? Either you're elite or you're not, says one man, but do you need to be elite on both sides of the ball? We talk about some recent examples, and at the end of the show, some season propositions. Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, physical address, where you can go check everything out, socially, culinary, can't miss, Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Weekdays, lunch specials, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Mondays, it's a half-pound Black Angus burger. It don't miss either. Comes with a side dish of your choice, straight fries, curly fries, tater tots, onion rings, broccoli, side salad. You know all of it. Fresh cooked potato chips, $8.99 for that half-pound burger and a side dish. It's amazing. Go over to the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Enjoy yourself. If you can't make it to Orlando, go catch the game there. It's the official, unofficial viewing palace of the Warchant.com family. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Won't you leave a 5-star rating and review for us, please? Subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Subscribe to Warchant.com. Corey Clark, we begin our 5th season together, my friend. How's it feel?
It feels great, buddy. It feels like just the first time. It feels just like the first time with you. It always will, I think. But yeah, it's the most it's the highest expectations and the most excited I've been for a season opener. So yeah, man, I'm ready to go. We're here. We made it to game week.
Really? I mean, for as much as we quibbled about, Willie at times, I still feel like we thought 18 was going to be okay. Like they had enough talent left over from what Jimbo had done, and a breath of fresh air, and things were new. There's a newness, and it was just kind of like this assumption that Florida State was not too far off of where they had been the year before. They were preseason ranked 3rd, so it was like, all right, we're in a really good place. But I agree. This feels real, right? Like 18 was a lot of hoping and kind of connecting dots that might have not been there, but this feels real and authentic and genuine. More so.
100%. I think the quarterback has a lot to do with it. Francois was good in 16, but he never really got past that. He never improved after that, and a lot of that had to do with him getting hurt and then losing Jimbo as a QB coach. But the quarterback play is going to be much better. The offense in general is much better. I'm actually going to write about this at some point this week, maybe right as soon as we're done recording this. There was a moment on Saturday night, we got to watch them practice inside the stadium, got to experience the new lights.
Yes. Bright.
Bright. Yeah, bright. It's like if you ever watch a Lakers game, you know how it looks like the Lakers are playing on a stage?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. But the whole stadium is lit up like a stage. So there was a moment there where I was watching, I don't remember what drills they were specifically, but I'm watching so they have receivers doing different things at different times. I'm watching Johnny and Keon Coleman go through some drills. I'm watching Winston Wright come out of a break, Destin Hill come out of a break, and then on the other side of not even on the other side of the field, like 20 yards away from him, Hakeem Williams is going through a different drill. And so is Vandravius Jacobs. And I'm like, man, look at this. And this doesn't even count Jaheim Bell. Look at where this roster has gotten to, where, again, Hakeem Williams has been playing pretty darn well. And he's starting to look like he could be a big-time dude in the future. It kind of reminds you of in the 90s when a freshman receiver would show up with all the hubbubaloo, but you knew he probably wasn't going to play for a year or two. Case in point, Peter Warwick. Really good, but just too young to crack the rotation with such a deep receiving core. So you're watching Keon Coleman make a ridiculous catch at the 3-yard line. You watch Johnny Wilson make a crazy catch in one-on-ones that I think they ruled him out of bounds, but man, I thought he might have gotten his left foot down, spinning, contorting near the corner of the end zone. And then Hakeem Williams running through a drill. Vandravius Jacobs getting deep. Destin Hill, a huge play in one-on-ones. And it's so deep the quarterback that's throwing to him. This doesn't even account for the running backs. And then when they did that first drive, did you watch the first drive in period 3?
Oh, buddy, I think we should do a whole 5 minutes on that. But yes, I
do. Yeah, I do too. So yeah, let's go to that. But there was a moment where I'm watching practice. I didn't articulate it well. When you're just kind of overwhelmed, not at the talent, not at just the sheer talent, because again, there have been more talented teams at Florida State. A lot more. I mean, look, man, we lived through the 90s. It was an incredible amount of talent every year. But compared to what it was just a few years ago is what's so astonishing.
Yes.
That you're looking around at a Hakeem Williams going, I wonder if he can even get on the field. Or a Morlock. How much is he really going to play? And it's just 2 or 3 years ago, those guys would have been in the starting lineup. And now you're wondering when and how much they're going to play. And it kind of hit me golly, they've upgraded so much. Did a CJ Campbell, who to me looks like a really pretty darn good college running back, is 5th string? So that's kind of where that. So I don't know why. Maybe it was just sitting in the stadium. They are pretty darn healthy. So you're seeing, Fabian Lovett's out there throwing guys around. You're seeing almost the full capacity of this football team in one moment in the stadium, and I'm like, man, yeah, they are talented, and they're just deep, and it's just so different than it used to be here a few years ago. It kind of struck me on Saturday night.
It'll strike you all on Sunday, we hope.
Let's hope, yeah.
It should.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they start off with the Warchant playing when they go through their stretch period, and then they have 2 periods of practice. There was no music. There was no sound at all playing inside of Doak Campbell Stadium. They were just going through their individual drills, getting ready. And then period 3 starts, and Norvell yells out, "Crowd noise! Give me crowd noise!" And they just crank it all the way up to 11. This one goes to 11. And it was so loud in there. You really couldn't even hear yourself think. I mean, I know that sounds so cliche and weird, but it's just overwhelmingly loud in that place. And then they break out into a team drill. And before they'd started, I was kind of on one side of the field, and I heard Alex Atkins walking up with this offensive lineman and talking to them about the situation, Corey. And he was like, listen, it's 1 minute. We need to get a touchdown. We have no timeouts. So I think they start off on their 30 or 35-yard line, maybe the 25-yard line. And then it's this drive, everybody, that, I wish we could sit here and almost just chart out every single thing that happened. But it was that back and forth, which we keep talking about this offense looking great, but then we're almost hedging it by saying, well, the defense looks really good too. And it's how can they mutually exist? How can these things coexist together where your offense looks really good and your defense really looks really well? And I think period 3 on Saturday night inside of Doak, Corey, was the absolute personification of it, because they made that such a real game pressure situation, not just because of the crowd noise, but just the sense of urgency, the competitive spirit of that drill. Offense almost looks dead to rights, they weren't even going to get the ball across midfield. And then Jordan Travis taps into whatever Jordan Travis now has living inside of him, and then promptly moves them down the field. I mean, you can walk us through some of the series of plays you thought that caught your eye, but eventually it ends up them being inside the 5-yard line, and they've got 2 shots, quote unquote, to win the game. So that entire sequence, you could just feel the tension, the anxiety, the desire of each side to want to win. I mean, defense is running back and forth. They're yelling. They're screaming at each other. Get in position the same way you would see them in a real game, the way they probably will at moments Sunday against LSU, moments Saturday in Death Valley. That encapsulated to me just how legitimately talented and poised this team is. And, it brings all this kind of full circle in terms of where they were, where they're at, and why they're going to be good.
Well, and they have guys that are going to play on Sundays. And there was a moment. So it started with, I think, a false start, actually.
It did.
Sorry to say that, everyone, but it did. It started with a false start. And then a couple of incompletions, maybe. I don't quite remember. And then Jordan just threw a ridiculous, great pass to Winston Wright, who was covered well. But he did have a step on. I can't remember who the DB was. He did have a step on him, but it was just a perfect throw. And it was like a 35-yard gain, 35-yard gain.
Might have been greedy.
It might have been greedy, yeah. And look, man, I thought he had good coverage. It was just sometimes the guy makes a better throw. And then what I think encapsulates what this team could be and why it could be different is it might have been the next play. I don't remember. I'm not looking at my notes. So Jordan Travis takes the snaps, looking downfield. Jared Verse blows past. I think it was Bless Harris at left tackle. But, man, look, That nothing against Bless Harris. That's going to happen to a lot of dudes. It's just he's so quick and so physical. So he's touching Jordan Travis, not sacking him because obviously they don't do that. He's touching him like play over, like two-hand touching him right as Jordan Travis is throwing the ball. And he makes an unbelievable throw to Jaheim Bell between two dudes, and Jaheim Bell makes a ridiculous catch. So in one moment, you have a potential first-round defensive end pressuring a potential Heisman candidate, not potential, a Heisman candidate, who then throws to a potential NFL tight end, all in the span of 2.5 seconds. And again, that's all three of those guys are special in their own way. Burst is probably going to be paid the most money next year, but they're all very, very good football players, and it was all on display in that one moment. The play didn't count because they ruled that Jordan Travis had been sacked, which I think is the right call. But, man, he threw that thing quick, and Jaheim Bell just made a great catch on a ball that was put in a pretty darn good spot. And then a play or two later, it's kind of a desperation, 3rd and 10, ball at your 25, 27-yard line, 15 seconds left. Keon Coleman makes an incredible catch, I think over Greedy Vance again. But Greedy, again, is in perfect position. Jordan just kind of throws it up because he got to at some point, but puts it in a good spot. It's not just a Chris Ricks jump ball. Keon Coleman makes a great adjustment, snags it, gets pushed out of bounds at the 3. A remarkable catch from another guy that's going to be playing on Sundays. And again, this was in the span of 4 plays. You saw Jared Verse, who they then took off the field after that sack. Jared Verse, Travis, Bell, Keon Coleman, Winston Wright sprinkled in there too, all in the span of 4 plays. Again, kind of showing you, it's not going to be perfect. They're not going to win every game, period, and they're certainly not going to win every game 50-0. But the talent has been raised to a point where you have special guys all over the field really competing hard. And having to compete hard, or they're not going to make a catch. And that's the thing. It's not like 2 years ago, right? Keon Coleman probably makes that catch standing by himself with the 3. Something like that. Or it's not nearly as ridiculous a catch. Greedy's a good college corner. It is in really good position. Travis makes a nice throw, and Coleman makes a fantastic catch. And it's like, yeah, they got all the weapons you would want. Doesn't mean they're going to win every game, but I thought Saturday night, both sides of the ball displayed how they have so many weapons that make them, what they are, which I think is a top 10 college football team.
Yeah, and to defend Greedy here is people are like, well, you mentioned him twice, being on the back end of allowing a reception. It's just, I believe that, they're not going to see quarterback receiver tandems that can execute the way that Florida State is able to in practice consistently, over the course of 60 minutes. So the same way that I feel this Florida State offense is going to be so difficult to defend and contain for 60 minutes, you're not going to have a lot of options to make this defense look bad. And listen, Malik Neighbors is a supremely talented wide receiver. Jaden Daniels can spin it. They're gonna connect probably on some big plays. But I don't think this is going to be a defense where you'll have an easy time consistently doing that. I know that's setting a very low bar when you have these really high expectations for being a national championship contending team. But again, this defense is in position, and they're going to be in position enough to where they're going to make the plays. Greedy's going to bat it down. Jared Verse is going to make that sack. That defensive lineman that offensive lineman is not going to be able to hold up Jared long enough for that quarterback to get the ball off. So timing is going to be knocked off. These things are just going to catch up to teams that are playing Florida State, I believe, over the course of the season, which again just has me feeling so darn good about it. And then ultimately, listen, the defense wins that drive, right, Corey?
Yeah.
I mean, they win that drive. So they bowed up. The offense had 2 good opportunities inside, I think, the 5-yard line, and the defense found a way to stop them. And it wasn't because of lack of execution on the offense's part. The defense had really good coverage those last 2 plays. So, you mix all that together. That's why we've been excited, everybody. That's why we feel good letting you know, maybe put some shekels on this team this year.
Then in the one-on-one, I tracked it. So the one-on-ones, again, I'll describe it for the people who don't know. It's the receiver versus DB, or tight end versus safety. Basically, with the first part of it is the whole field to work with. You start on the right hash, but you could be running a post, you could be running a crossing route, you could be running an out, a fade, a go. It's all available to you. In the first 10 plays that was one-on-ones with the whole field to use, they threw 10 straight incompletions. the DBs were all over them. The linebackers were all over them. Like they did. DJ Lundy almost had a pick.
Yep.
I think Renardo almost had a pick. Should have had a pick. Azarie was being Azarie. Just really good play. But again, what makes this team work is that the offense came back. Destin Hill, it's a 40-yarder. I think Winston Wright caught a 70-yarder, where Quindarius Jones is in great position, and it somehow goes right. Winston Wright has a couple steps on him, but the ball, Quindarius catches up, and the ball somehow goes right through his hands, and Winston somehow holds on, even though he probably couldn't even see the ball, and keeps running. So the point being, there are real. It's not one-sided, and you wouldn't want it to be one-sided. They are really I know we make a joke on this, and they say it every time we talk to a player now. It should be on their T-shirts. It is iron sharpening iron. You know what I mean? They really are making each other better because the DBs have to go up against a really unique receiving corps that has a 6'7" freak, a 6'4" NFL guy. Winston Wright's been in college football for 5 or 6 years. Destin Hill, I think, is going to be a star. Vantravius Jacobs is as fast as anyone. Hakeem Williams is a 5-star that's coming into his own. You've got these guys. It's a unique kind of – in Morlock and Jaheim Bell, you've got some pass catchers that are difficult. And these DBs more than hold their own, right?
Absolutely.
Which gives you it gives you a pretty good feeling going into the season. At the same time, they don't win every battle. Like these receivers, because they have to step up their game, which is what they did on Saturday night, and answer for the second half of one-on-ones and make some really nice catches and some really good moves to get clear of coverage. I thought Keon and I think it was Keon and Azarie maybe again, or maybe it was Keon and Greedy. They had some good battles. Greedy did really well on a couple of them, and then Keon beat them when they switch over and start doing one-on-ones from like the 5 going into the end zone. They don't have as much of the whole field to use, obviously, but it's probably easier to throw a 5-yard completion and score a touchdown. DBs did well, but Destin Hill got free for an easy touchdown. Keon Coleman had a release on the line that just left. I think it was Greedy behind him where he couldn't catch up. They got some. It's just really good work against each other. It's one thing to have a lot of starter talent. The starting 22 is talented. That's great, and it is. But these young guys and the backups have improved so much. That floor has been raised so much that these days, Sunday through Friday, or in this case, Sunday to Saturday, since the game's on Sunday, they're getting real work and they're legitimately getting better because they're facing good players. Not just dudes that should probably be at Ball State or Akron, but guys that belong at Florida State and are going to be probably pretty good college football players at Florida State. They're just young right now, but they're learning and growing, and they're presenting real challenges in practice. And I mean the DBs, right? I think that freshman DB class has a chance to be really good.
Yeah, they're giving them every opportunity. I mean, you mentioned that red zone when they go kind of goal line, where it's not technically goal line, it's not on the actual 1-yard line, but it's like on the 5 or whatever. Yeah, I mean, like if you run a slant, you're 80% going to come up with the ball seemingly if you're a wide receiver. Maybe if you run a fade, that knocks you down to like 60%. It feels very much skewed to the offense side of things. But in terms of like the freshman DBs, like Jaheim decided, like, I'm going to run to the back of the end zone and then kind of run a square in. And I'm going to bully this freshman in front of me. And it was KJ Kirkland. Like, he just, as soon as he ran off the line, like, Jaheim just puts his hands on him like he's trying to almost block him downfield as if it was a screen pass and just tries to bully him right out of the way and then just be able to move right into the center of the end zone for a catch. But Kirkland stays with him the entire time. Like, Kirkland stayed on his hip and batted it away. And I didn't write down a lot of notes from Saturday's practice, but that was one of the ones where I'm just like, Jaheim tries to bully 24 and lost the rep. To see a true freshman being able to hang with a guy that's an NFL caliber prospect just portends well to, again, where the team is right now because they have an NFL prospect at tight end and where they can be sustaining-wise with these young DBs.
And I thought Quindarius had a really impressive interception.
He did.
In one-on-ones in the red zone, just going up and attacking the ball. It's that mindset, right? It was interesting. We talked to Renardo Green afterwards. On a little big peek behind the curtains. On Sunday, I was going to write a story on Renardo Green because we got him after practice for 6 minutes. And Ira was like, he was actually really talkative.
Yeah, people were saying in the comments that that's like maybe the most revealing and game he's been in front of the microphone.
100%. So I'm like, oh man, okay, this will be exciting. Nobody asked a single question to Renardo Green about Renardo Green. So I told Ira, I was like, I can write, but it's not going to be on Renardo Green because he wasn't asked a question about himself. And as I wrote in the story, that's twofold. The first one being, man, he's so consistently good that there's not much to ask him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just understood. It's assumed. It's taken for granted. Renardo Green is a starting cornerback, a potential All-ACC cornerback. He's very good, and he's steady.
Yes.
So, he's better than he was last year, and he was good last year, but he's just a steady force. So you don't even ask him about himself. You ask him about the other guys. So that's what I wrote about, is him talking about the other guys. And he talked about those freshman DBs and how they just have this mindset. They're not typical freshmen. They come in. He did say they were twitchy, which I love. It's a great adjective, or maybe an adverb. Is it an adverb when you say twitchy? But he said they're twitchy, but they didn't come in as freshmen. They're athletic, but the mindset that they have is different. And I think it's the way they work, and I think it's the way they attack the ball. Like, they're not scared to just give up a big play. They want to go make a play. It's not just not allowing the other guys to make a play. They want to go make a play. I think that has something to do with the new secondary coach. But also, I just think it's these guys, at least a few of them, are probably built a little different, and they're going to play. I don't know how much they'll play this year, but, man, Conrad Hussey is going to play at Florida State. Quindarius Jones is absolutely going to play at Florida State.
Edwin Joseph, yeah.
Yeah, I just think those guys, KJ Kirkland too. Those guys are built a little different. And I would recommend going and watching the Renardo Green interview. It actually was insightful. You can tell when he talks, he's a very intelligent kid. He's just one of these guys that doesn't really like the media aspect of the job.
Yeah. It's funny. I think he had a battle's end and was talking about just like I don't listen to anybody outside like the four walls because none of you have the ability to play football the way that, like, to play cornerback is like the most difficult thing in the world to do. He's like, so I don't pay attention to anybody out there. He's like, but I got to talk to my auntie because my auntie loves being on Warchant. So he name drops Warchant.
Nice.
So he's like, I tell auntie, like, I got it. Like, it's okay. Like, don't worry about them. They don't know. So it's good to see Renardo be a little more comfortable in his skin. So you could be more comfortable in your skin if you take Vitamin Energy, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code is WarchantBOGO. That's Warchant, B-O-G-O. Their Workout Plus is the #1 pre-workout shot on the market, and for great reason. It's got 260 milligrams of natural caffeine, and again, no sugar. It's got citrulline. It's got beta-alanine, and it also has carnitine, which, as Corey knows, and I'll let you all know since I'll run it in, he let me know before the show, it's a substance that helps your body turn fat into energy. So you already have the caffeine, now you have the carnitine on your side, giving you even more energy and burning fat possibly. It's the best workout. Tastes great too, the sour apple, it's our favorite. So why don't you shake it and take it? Go to vitaminenergy.com, use that promo code WarchantBOGO, B-O-G-O, and come out Saturday to Hooch in downtown Orlando. We'll be giving out some free Vitamin Energy, some swag too, some shirts, some hats. Corey gave away tons of Vitamin Energy at the Libations Jeff Cameron Listener Appreciation Show on Saturday or Friday. Did you clear out your stock? Is it all gone?
No, I still got some left.
Okay.
And I should have thought about this before. I gave it to some of the wait staff.
Nice, yeah.
Makes sense, right? Like they're going. They need a pot. They need a pep. And my man Luke, one of the waiters there, was like, "Oh, yeah, he took 3," which I you don't have to do that. One will be good enough. It gets you going. But he's like, "Oh yeah." When I saw him later that night, he's like, "Absolutely, it's got me rolling. I feel great. I could work all night." So yeah. So I don't maybe recommend taking 3 bottles.
Don't do
but yeah, it gets that pep in your step.
So it's officially week 1 now, Corey. Week 0 in the books. Hope everybody was able to maybe catch a glimpse of that Notre Dame game, see where we're playing at next year. 362 days or whatever it is away, playing Georgia Tech in Aviva Stadium in Dublin. The Irish, are they back? But I think a lot of people were talking about, maybe not the Southern Cal game, people were talking about that for a whole different reason, but the clock, this whole clock going running thing, people aren't a big fan of it. And I wonder, you wrote a story on it. We've mentioned it a few times in passing during the offseason. But as we sit here, and I don't want to walk through scenarios where, like, this is how Florida State loses to LSU. But I wonder if the game are the margins going to be maybe a little thinner, or the opportunities for upsets a little greater, a little bit more there ripe for the picking with the way that this clock running is now, because it seems like, man, you can put together a nice drive and you get a stop, and then you're in the midst of your second nice drive and you're already in the second quarter seemingly, and like condensing the game. I mean, do you see this maybe working out more drastically than you envisioned when you sat down and did the math and kind of wrote some of these stories in the off season now that we've seen 5 Division I Power 5 involved games?
Yeah, no, it's about what I thought it would be. That doesn't mean I don't think it's a big change. It's just I envisioned it. So I saw somebody tweet out the numbers. I don't remember them exactly. I think the tweet was last year a college game averaged like 68 offensive plays a game per team, and then on Saturday it was 63, which is about right. And it was like instead of 3 hours and 24 minutes, it was 3 hours and 8 minutes. Which seems about right. It's 12 less plays a game, probably 6 less plays per side, 6 to 8 probably, and that's going to be that constitutes one drive. So yes, it does. I don't know that it'll come into a play against a team like LSU because you're not even favored to win that game. So maybe it helps Florida State to if they're the less talented team in Vegas's eyes anyway. Maybe the less plays, the better. But I do think for lesser teams, the less plays there are in a game, clearly, the better that is for you. That's 6 less plays. Alabama has a chance to hit an 80-yarder or to intercept a pass and run it back. Like it's supposedly for safety, and I get it. Instead of 100 plays a game, you're going to have 70. But man, or it gets rid of the offenses that were running 95 plays a game, which I thought that was ridiculous anyway. So I do like that aspect of it. But yeah, you're losing a drive potentially per game. And so, yeah, it will equalize it a little bit. It does narrow the margin for error when you if you're only going to get 9 drives in a game and you fiddle fart around on one of them, well, now you only got 8 drives to go make your hay. And you're not going to score a touchdown on 8 drives. So it narrows the margin for error. I don't think it matters in an LSU game as much as like at BC or against Syracuse or somebody like that. Games you should win, but when the plays shrink and the time of possession shrinks and the drive shrinks from 11 possessions in a game to 9 or 10 possessions in a game, yeah, that'll keep the scores closer.
Yeah, part of me was thinking about this because I know we just gushed about how great this defense looked in really crucial situations in practice on Saturday. But, our guy Khalil Young, quasi-pillar, tried to reach out to him, didn't respond to me, but it's all right, Khalil. We're still friends. But he was responding to, one of the questions from the live show about, this team versus maybe the 14 team. And he just, laughed. He's like, give me a break, man. He's like, the 14 defense was incredibly more talented than this team's defense. And then I'm like, when you lay it out like that, all right, I see what you're saying. For real, you're right. And then I start thinking about, talking about it's 2023. The game is a little bit different. Has football changed that much in 10 years, 11 years from where this program was to where they're going to be at right now, to where, my kind of prevailing thought has been just be good enough, get enough stops from those 9 to 10 possessions now as opposed to 11. So now you only have 9 or 10 times you have to run on the field and stop that team. Is there such thing as being good enough, Corey, to let this offense do what it needs to do to get where you think you possibly can go? Or do you need to be elite? And maybe you don't need to be elite all 13 weeks, but on the whole, you have to look back and think that, you don't win a national championship unless both sides of your team are truly indeed elite.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. If we're talking I don't know what this means, like the modern era of this day of college football. Are we talking like the last 5 years?
Is it different? I mean, is it different enough you think that we don't need to reclassify it, but we need to maybe be cognizant of the fact that, maybe 14 would look similar to the way the stats that this defense is going to end up putting up because the game has kind of evolved quickly in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and look, man, that defense obviously was more talented. It had Eddie Goldman, Mario Edwards, Jalen as a sophomore, Darby, P.J. Williams, but that defense was not I wouldn't say that was a good defense. I mean, maybe it was a good defense. It was not a great defense or an elite defense. Not by the numbers, not by the scores. I mean, just what, and I'm not even talking about the Oregon game. Forget the Oregon game. They gave up the points to Louisville. They gave up. They were down 17-3 against Miami and Brad Kaya. So
NC State, they got cooked. Yeah.
Yeah, NC State, they gave up 50 points almost. And that wasn't even Russell Wilson, NC State. That was Jacoby Brissett. No, that was not an elite defense. It had elite talent. My point being, this defense can be better than that defense, even though the NFL draft won't produce as many NFL draft picks. But PJ Williams was elite in 13. Darby was elite in 13 and pretty darn good in 14. Jalen Ramsey turned into elite in 14. But, PJ Williams wasn't the player in 14 that he was in 13. Mario Edwards was a good defensive end, but he wasn't Jared Verse. He just wasn't. Jared Verse is a game wrecker. In fact, Jared Verse is so much of a game wrecker that I asked Norvell after practice, and you can go watch the video on our YouTube channel, is it hard to just run plays with him? I didn't word it this way, but basically, do you need to get him off the field so you can run some stuff? Because there was a stretch. It wasn't just the sack that he had on Verse or on Travis on that period 3 that we talked about. When they went 7-on-7, 11-on-11. No, it had to be 11-on-11. They were doing some other drills, 11-on-11. And there were 2 straight plays where he's in the backfield and they can't do anything. He's just so quick and he gets in there so quickly that, yeah, man. So, but the point being, this defense can be good enough to get you to where you want to go. I truly believe that. They are not going to be, but man, was Ohio State's defense great last year?
Dude, you absolutely crushed it there, because that was my thought. It was that offense was elite. That defense was Florida State-esque. They were 13th in total defense. Florida State was 14th in total defense. Yeah. Their passing efficiency defense was not nearly as good as Florida State's. Let me see here. Scoring-wise, they were 24th. Florida State's defense was 20th in scoring defense. So they were very similar.
And people can say, well, they didn't win a championship. Man, they were a field goal away. And they were, in my opinion, a bad coaching decision of settling for the field goal away from beating Georgia on New Year's Eve. They were a whisker away from beating Georgia and then going on to pummel TCU and win the national championship. That's how close they were. That was a national championship team that didn't win a national championship, but they were very, very close. Florida State can be that. They can. Their offense can be good enough. Their defense can be good enough that if you have an elite offense, you'll be fine. You'll win most games. But you're going to give up points. It's 2023. No. LSU is going to score multiple touchdowns on Sunday night. Maybe 4. I don't know. But if your offense scores 5, good work. So I think what worries people, again, and I keep coming back to this, is the last 2 games the defense played. That's the last 2 times you saw them.
You're being kind. You're being kind. I think it's not just the 2 games. I think people have – I don't, but I think the people that are concerned about the defense, they just think it's this schematic, foolish kind of thing that's holding them back.
But it was those 4 games in between before Florida and Oklahoma, they gave up 1 touchdown in total in 4 games. I mean, they were the best. I mean, and I know they weren't playing very good teams, but it's still college football. Teams do score. And Florida State just suffocated everyone they played. And then those last 2 games against a top 5 pick who played well that game, and then the kid that from UCF that
Dylan Gabriel.
That's a good offense. Yeah. And remember, you gave up a lot of running the ball. You gave up so much running the ball that I don't think that's happening right now. As this team defense is currently constructed, they will not be as easy to run on this year as they were last year. Fabian Lovett matters. Braden Fisk absolutely matters. A better Josh Farmer matters. More depth on the defensive line matters. And so I think that will help this defense a lot. I'm not predicting a national championship. I'm not the person to ever do something like that. But this defense will not be the reason. I don't foresee them losing 47-45. I feel like if they're going to lose games this year, they will be very much like the scores from last year. And I don't know, other than the Clemson game, where a lot of that came down to a kick return, like a horrible 4-minute window there to sandwich the halves. I don't know that you would say the defense cost them any of those games. Or the defense was the reason they lost those games. It didn't help, but it wasn't the reason they lost. It's a good defense. It will be a good defense. It's not going to be 2021 Georgia.
All right, I'm back on board.
There we go.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could do it for you,
Yeah,
man.
because I was like, man, listen, like what the 2013 team did was absolutely incredible, and maybe we're now so far removed that we're taking some of it for granted. To where, like, if you want to look, and I don't think anybody necessarily wants to look that good. They just want to win as well as that team did, and maybe those two things kind of coexist and go together. But like, I was just like convincing myself, I'm like, yeah, man, they probably can't win it all. And I don't think I've ever gone ahead and said that. I just think that they should be a playoff team. But I just felt like, man, you need to be top 5 in both. Like, you need to be a top 5 offense. You need to be a top 5 defense. You need to be Georgia with freaking Ladd McConkey and you know, what's my guy from Napa, the tight end, Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
You got to be Brock Bowers. You got to have all these NFL nasty dudes on your defense. Like, that's how you win. And if you don't have that, you're not going to. But like Ohio State showed us that, you know, you can hang with that kind of team when you have a month to plan and prepare for it if you can make it to that level. You know, again, I don't want to compare this team to LSU, but like LSU 19, number 1 total offense, their defense that year was pretty pedestrian. They were 31st in yards allowed, and they were 32nd in points allowed. So, and that's kind of where Florida State was defensively last year. They're actually better than that. They were in the 20s in most of those things. So again, if you're
they weren't as good, but that offense, obviously, the people that want to retort to that would say, well, that was all time maybe the best offense in college football history.
Absolutely.
We get it, but Florida State won't have that. But Florida State has enough weapons that they will be one of the best offenses in the country. Should be if they stay healthy-ish. And then the defense, like we've talked about, should be good enough. If you have a great offense and a good defense, that's a pretty darn good recipe for getting to the playoff. And I don't think Florida State is one of these like Michigan State from whenever that was 6 years ago or 8 years ago, when you know they're not going to win that. They're not going to win a playoff game.
Yeah.
You know, there's been other examples. Washington, I think. Yeah, there are teams that it's cool that they got in.
Cincinnati.
But they're not going to win a friggin' national championship. Florida State, if it gets into the playoff, it gives itself a shot. It is not just it would not be overwhelmed talent and experience wise. That defense would be good enough. Again, we'll cross that bridge 4 months from now if that even appears. But yeah, I don't think this just isn't a team where like, hey, get to the playoff and that's a great season. I mean, it is a great season. That's not what I worded. Like, get to the playoff, everything else is gravy. If they're in the playoff, they're 2 wins away from a national championship, and it's a coin flip. Like, I think them against Georgia is depending on how injuries happen and everything else, and if Carson Beck ends up being just pedestrian, it's a coin flip, man. Just like Georgia Ohio State was. Just like Michigan TCU was. I mean, just give yourself a chance. They're not the favorites. They don't have the talent from top to bottom that Georgia and Alabama do. Who does? But nobody has the experience that Florida State does. Nobody. And that could matter come late December, whenever the playoffs. Who knows? Is it New Year's Eve? Do they kick off right when the ball drops this year? Like, who knows with college football? But yeah, I think watching that team on Saturday night, they're good enough to beat anyone in the country. Doesn't mean they will. Not predicting it, but they are.
We brought him aboard, everybody. We brought him aboard. He's here. We made it. Game week 1. We can't wait. Hopefully we can bring you aboard to mybookie.ag. Use the promo code WARCHANT if you decide to go to mybookie.ag and sign up, because you'll get an instant cash deposit bonus. And you can use it on everything, whether it's live games, futures, the casino they have. What do you think about this one, Corey? 38.5. Southern Cal favored against Nevada. Like, does Southern Cal come out angry and wanting to show everybody that, you know, they sleptwalk on national television against San Jose State? Or is their defense just that they're not going to be able to thump somebody? They won by 28 ultimately. Can they do 11 points better against Nevada, who hasn't played a game yet, and USC had their tune-up?
By the way, it wasn't on national TV, but it was the Pac-12 network.
Which is nationally available.
Well, sure, to some. Not on my cable package.
So, like, ABC, CBS, ESPN is considered nationally televised, but not everybody has ESPN.
Yeah, but Pac-12, it's so mysterious, and nobody knows if they have it or not, or what cable even offers it. That I've never seen the Pac-12 network on a TV. Yeah. It's crazy. So yes, I guess technically it is from coast to coast, but you know what I mean.
Right,
it's not national as in like ESPN. No. By the way, what an awful slate of games. I guess they were last year, too. Was there a good Week 0 game last year?
I don't think there ever is.
Yeah, ugh. So I would say, no, man, USC's defense is bad. Lincoln Riley loves to have a bad defense. It gives his quarterback a chance to put up bigger yards and more touchdowns. So no, I think 38.5 is too much. I think USC will score 55. But it also, I wonder, the fact that, there's going to be 8 less plays. It's 1 less drive.
There you go.
So that shrinks the gap a little bit. So, yeah, I like Nevada plus, what'd you say, 38.5?
38.5. Yeah.
Oh, that's all day. That's an automatic. That's an auto take.
Give us at least 2 weeks before you really start taking us seriously. Let us build some data before we really give you out the winners here. Utah still giving out 6.5 to the Gators, and Florida State catching 2.5 against LSU. Heisman odds, national championship odds, playoff odds. They're all there. MyBookie.ag. Use that promo code WARCHANT where you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere at MyBookie.ag. Corey, we brought you along to thinking playoff possibly. Desmond Howard is there with us. Welcome to the party, Des. ESPN College Game Day had their they had game day, but they weren't at an actual venue. They were inside the studio, and they went through all the conferences and they chose their conference champions, and then they went ahead and revealed their playoff bracket. Des was listening to Chris Fowler, who was in Tallahassee last week, and saw Jordan Travis have a pretty solid practice. I think that might have been the day that Norvell said, used the word exceptional. So Fowler relayed word to Des that this team is really good. This quarterback is really good. So Des is all in. Des got Florida State winning the ACC, going to the playoff. Kirk Herbstreit, though, and Pat McAfee, the whole you got to beat the man to be the man. And going into Clemson, they think is still enough to give Clemson the edge to win the ACC, which I kind of understand it, I guess. I think maybe if the shoe were on the other foot as Florida State fans, you'd be like, man, we've won 7 of the last 8. They've got to come to our house, and you think they're going to win the conference? Like, that's crap. You guys don't like us. So I guess it's fair, but my counter would be, like, are they thinking that Clemson's going to – because they're like, oh, Clemson gets to host Florida State, so they think that Florida State's going to lose twice to Clemson, Or do they think that Florida State might be able to sneak it away in September but then lose in December to Clemson? Because they're going to probably end up playing twice. And I think when it matters the most and all the chips are on the table, I like Florida State's chances. But it's fair. I'm not anti-ESPN here or anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would rank Clemson ahead of Florida State if I was picking the champ, just because, you haven't beaten them since Smag was here. And they were up on you 3 touchdowns at home last year in the fourth quarter. Go up there and earn it. But I also think there's a chance, probably a decent one, even though I know it's their job, that they might – but it's the ACC, so it's out of sight, out of mind. They don't care. They might not realize that we don't have divisions anymore. And so they think, okay, well, whoever wins that Florida State-Clemson game is going to win the division because they're going to be matched up with the team from the Coastal.
Ah, yeah.
And and Clemson's playing at home, so they'll probably win that game, and that's essentially a 2-game lead on Florida State at that point, and Florida State can't make the championship game. Because it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter, that September game. You'd like to you'd like to win the game so you have a little bit of margin for error. But if Florida State goes 7-1 and their only loss is at Clemson, almost assuredly they will play Clemson again in Charlotte, and then it's not a pro Clemson crowd. It's a best 50-50. So, but it makes sense, right? Like, prove it. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I was irate in 2014 when all these teams that didn't deserve it got leapfrogged the defending national champs because they were struggling to win their games, but they were still winning. That was preposterous. It was stupid. Beating Clemson, that Clemson team with Deshaun Watson, with a backup quarterback, you should have been number 1 in perpetuity. But no, they just struggle with everyone. It was just preposterous. So that was ridiculous. This is just, go earn it, man. Go earn it. There's no shame here. I don't think this is a bias. It's Clemson's owned this conference for a decade now, and I would pick Clemson every year until somebody beats them. But this might be the year. Could be the year.
It's going to be the year. Last thing on the way out, we did speak to Trey Benson after practice, spoke to Coach Norvell after practice on Saturday as well. They'll have their press conference today, and then they'll practice, I think like 4 more times. We'll be able to watch 3 of the next 4 practices. So stay connected.
No, I think just 2, right? Just Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay, you're right.
Depending on the hurricane, too, by the way.
Which, my mom texted me. So, we're in is Tallahassee in danger or is Orlando in danger? Are we all in danger?
Well, you never know with a hurricane, Aslan. That's the thing. But come on, man, you gotta pay attention. But yes, it's Tallahassee. It's apparently coming towards the Big Bend.
Great. I just made my shed. It's going to blow my shed away. Ah.
Sorry, buddy. It's
why I
cool
don't
that you're
wanna-
making sheds, though.
Well, I mean, I make it sound like I built it from 2x4s.
Mr. Wilson from Home Improvement.
But we got to speak to Trey Benson, and Coach Norvell was just
He
gushing.
broke the rock.
He
Trey
broke
Benson
the
broke
rock.
the rock.
So
Yeah.
that means that the fall preseason camp is officially over. So he was the one that got that honor. And Coach Norvell was just talking about it. It was really hard to pick out, but he's just a guy that shows up every day and is doing everything the right way. And we heard Trey talk about how excited he is, and he's trying to be a leader, really giving a lot of compliments to Lawrence Toafili, kind of signifying and pointing out that Lawrence is sort of like the emotional leader of that room. So check that out, Grumpy BK. You're always wondering who's the emotional leader of this team. Maybe it's Lawrence Toafili. We don't talk about him enough. But you weren't there some of the practices, I think, last week where we did see Trey used sparingly in situations that resemble game-like scenarios, and he just looked different, like on a really – in a very good way. And he talked about the fact that he thinks he's faster now, he's bigger. We probably haven't talked about the run game a lot this preseason because, again, it's hard to judge because they're not fully live when we're out there watching them. But in terms of like an identity with this team, I mean, do you still believe this is a run-first kind of mentality, that the run will set up everything, and specifically the running backs? Or are you with on my side of the fence now, Corey, that you think that this passing game is that refined enough that it's really going to be the passing game that's going to make everything else hum this season?
I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't. I think, and this is such I hate this answer, but it's the truth. I think it depends on what the defense is doing. That's kind of the beauty of the offense. I don't think their identity is going to be one thing or the other. I think their identity is going to move the ball and score points. That's what they do. Because you just look at those last two games. Florida did a pretty good job. Now, there were some drops, but I think Travis in the game against Florida was 13 of 30. He probably should have been 20 of 30, but he was 13 of 30, but they ran for 200-something yards. And Trey Benson had like 140 rushing or 150 or something, and there a few touchdowns. And then Oklahoma, Trey Benson did next to nothing, and Travis threw for 418. That's the beauty of it, man. I think you don't get Keon Coleman to throw him the ball twice a game. So I do think they're going to throw it more. They're going to go into games wanting to throw more and throwing more. But I still think at the heart of this guy and his offensive line coach / offensive coordinator, they want to push people out of the way and run the ball. I just think that's built into his DNA a little bit. And but I think their identity is going to be whatever you give us, we're going to take, and we're going to score a lot of points because they can. Oh, great. Back those safeties up. Back those safeties up as far as they can go because you don't want number 4, number 14 to beat you. All right, well then you got to deal with Jordan Travis and Trey Benson and Toafili running the ball. And then if you scoot up to stop that up, well then good luck stopping 14 and 4. And Jaheim Bell and Destin Hill and Winston Wright and all these guys. It's going to be I think that's identity. The identity is it's going to be really, really balanced and multidimensional, which is when Jimbo's offenses were great. That's what they are. I know we all remember Jameis and that great season, but Devontae rushed for 1,000 yards and Wilder bowled over half the defenses he faced every week. And Carlos Williams. I mean, they ran the ball too. So,
all right, here we go.
Just throwing that out there. Hey, by the way, I think this a little. So when I interviewed Jimbo about that last drive, I always thought this was something that stuck with me because we do think of that 2013 offense as kind of the fun and gun, slinging it around to the great receivers. But when I interviewed him as we rewatched, if you can find that article, folks,
I've got it.
It's
I've
awesome.
got it, everybody. I've got the magazine. I need to get you and Ira to sign it, but anyhow,
just get me and Jimbo to sign it. Yeah. So we watched the last drive together on the coach's film, the All 22, and he took me through the play, each play, why he called it, what he was looking to accomplish, and he said, and I'm sure many of you have heard this story because I've told it before, on the pass interference to Rashad Green. As soon as he sees the flag go up, he knows what he's going to call because it's first down and he's got a timeout. And he said, Corey, I knew what I was going to call on first down because I knew if it was an incomplete pass, we were going to run it on second down. And he goes, because we had such a physical, good offensive line, and they were so physical and they were so aggressive that I wanted to give them a chance to win the game, is essentially what he was saying. Like, I wanted to give them a shot to win the game. And he knew that if they did stop the run, they still had a timeout where it could come down to the final play. Of course, it didn't come down to the final play. But the reason that play is set up like it is it's the exact same formation that Freeman scored a touchdown on in the second quarter. Same formation, same yard line, and Freeman bowls in for a touchdown. And so with a timeout, they knew they could run the ball. So Auburn swarmed up to stop the run because Florida State was so physical running the ball. They were not just they were not like the Oklahoma's kind of just shooter. You know what I mean? Like, they were physical. They weren't. I can't think of the name of those offense. Fun and gun. They could or run and shoot. They could run the ball. They prided themselves on being physical and running the ball, and that set up the pass over the top to Benjamin for the touchdown. So I think that's what this is. It is a team that will pride itself on being physical and pushing guys out of the way, but it also just happens to have two stud receivers that they're going to want to, and a great quarterback that they're going to want to use too.
I should have done better research on this, but want to do something here real quickly on the way out here, Corey. All right, give you 3 scenarios. You got to pick one or the other. We'll go here with the first one. More likely, Jordan Travis runs for 800 or more yards, or Trey Benson runs for over 1,500.
Benson.
Okay. More likely, Keon Coleman leads the team in receptions, or Jared Verse has 15 sacks.
Keon Coleman.
Okay. Who starts more at tackle, Bless Harris or Jeremiah Byers?
Come on, man.
Had to make him tough, man. Had to make him tough.
Man. Byers.
Okay. I agree with all. I would have gone. I think Jordan 800 is more likely than Benson 1,500. Although I think Benson looks amazing.
I just think they're both very unlikely. Not because they're not capable. They're not going to want Jordan to get rush for 50 yards a game or whatever, that 60 yards a game, because he's not going to have to. And then the same with Benson, right? The carries are going to be split too much. Yeah. But you're right. It's probably more. But what Jordan run for last year, like 450?
Jordan has gone down consistently. 559 in 2020, 530 in 21, and 417 this past year.
Yeah, so that would to double his rushing total. That seems more unlikely than Benson getting 33% more than he did last year.
All right. Just want to have some fun there at the end of the show. We'll be here all week, everybody. So will Jeff Cameron, 1 to 3 o'clock, except for Tuesdays when Headlines takes over, which is Corey, Ira, and Jeff. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be at practice twice this week. We'll have full reaction from those, as well as today's press conference where we'll speak to Coach Norvell, Alex Atkins, Adam Fuller, and John Papuchis. Maybe not necessarily in that order, though. Don't forget to order your tickets, wallstreetorlando.com. Saturday, Hooch, 4 to 5, live meet and greet. We'll obviously be live. We're there to meet and greet you folks.
I think Brady Clark will be making an appearance.
Oh, is he back in Dad's good graces? Or is Mom coming down?
Absolutely not. But his mom and stepdad are coming down for the game, and they had to bring him with them.
All right, cool. That's good. Come out there, 4 to 5, meet and greet, and then from 5 to 6, live edition of Seminole Headlines, a happy hour with the 3 guys that y'all love. So that'll be awesome as well. There's something else I need to talk about, I feel like. And I should have wrote all this down, but there's so much going on over at warchant.com. We'll have the Warchant report dropping later this week, previewing the game. We might even have an interview. We might try to get Matthew Bruni back on here, maybe Shea Dixon with Corey and I, so we can both talk to them about how they've looked maybe this last 10 days since we last spoke and see where LSU is at as we head into this game. So we're ramping it up. Hope you're doing it as well. Just make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And I think hit the one on the right is what we were telling you all like a year ago when we found out that we were on 2 different feeds, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But subscribe, hit the one on the right. Thumbs up, 5-star rating review. Read all of Corey's stuff. Read all of Ira's stuff. Subscribe to warchant.com. Is that about it, Corey? I think I knocked all out there.
You did it. You crushed that. That was a great way to end the show.
All right. It's going to be a fun season. Don't miss it out on any shows. Subscribe. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.